Well, Charlie Kirk is no longer with us, and he hasn't been for hours now. It's been confirmed. And I don't really know what I'm supposed to come on here and say. But the internet does. TikTok definitely does. As I don't have to scroll any farther to find a plethora of videos of people posting that they're rejoicing that Charlie Kirk was shot to the Broadway musical sound, Nobody Mourns the Wicked. In that song, there are lyrics that say, the wicked's lives are lonely and they will die alone and no one will miss them when they're gone. Do you know who will miss him? His 6-year-old daughter. Do you know who else I think will probably miss Charlie Kirk? Her younger brother. Do you know who I think is probably going to miss him most of all? His wife, who just an hour before he was shot posted a Bible verse. Psalms 46:1. God is our refuge and our strength, and we will find peace in him in times of trouble. I'm a believer. I believe in God. I am saved, and you know what? I still sit here sometimes and I wonder, why does God let bad things happen to good people? I don't know. Why did these awful things happen? And then I have to remind myself, God didn't let this happen. A gun didn't do this. An evil person with a horrible heart chose to do this, chose to end somebody else's life whose entire goal was to just allow people to have free speech. I want to sit on here and I want to say, guys, what's wrong with our country right now? We can't keep shooting at each other. But we're not shooting at each other. One side is shooting, and for some reason, it feels like we're just taking it. Every school shooter recently has all been trans or non-binary. The multiple attempts on the president's life were all politically motivated from Democrats. The killer of the CEO of the United Healthcare was also a Democrat. And now, a politically motivated Democrat decided to end Charlie Kirk's life. Why? We don't know. I can only assume it's because he truly has a demon and hate in his heart that I just cannot fathom. What the hell is wrong with this country right now? I don't even know what to say other than I'm at a loss. And I can't imagine the extensive pain that his wife is going through right now. And I can't imagine his 2 kids growing up without their dad. And I am so sorry.
This is such bullshit. I've never been so pissed in my whole life. They just murdered Charlie Kirk right here in Utah. I'm so freaking pissed right now. This is bullshit. I just saw blood squirting out of his neck. I love that guy. He would have been our next president. I am so pissed right now. Why do they always come with fucking violence? Gosh damn it. Use your freaking words as they're talking to you people. Who shot Charlie Kirk? I'm driving in a Provo right now. I'm so pissed. Damn it.
Okay, so they want me to talk about this boy, Charlie Kirk, who got shot in Utah. Him getting shot in Utah makes him, I believe, American number 18,533 who got shot in the U.S. this year, shot and killed. And I think that there were 3 more people who were killed, shot and killed in Colorado, just over the mountains, within hours of his shooting. And all the flags in America are going to fly half-mast, not for those 18,335 other victims, but they're going to fly half-mast for Charlie Kirk. That's just an observation. You can do with it what you will. I'll be honest, when I first heard that he had been shot, I made a joke about it on X. Because frankly, I'm just as used to theatrics coming out of America as I am used to gun violence coming out of America. And I thought that theatrics seemed more likely in this case. But when I did learn that he died, I deleted my post. I deleted it out of respect, not for him, but for the severity and for the solemnity of the judgment that he has now proceeded to. Because everything that he ever said and everything that he ever did that harmed anyone, well, he's going to answer for that. He's going to answer for that right now in his meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the heaviness of that meeting is disturbing to any of us who believe in it. But we'll talk about it. Let's start with the obvious, okay? First, I'm not going to feign grief or feign mourning for this person. I know that's a hypocrisy that social etiquette demands at a moment like this, but we all know that he would certainly not grieve for us. He certainly would not mourn for us, just as he never grieved and he never mourned for the wanton slaughter of the Palestinians in Gaza. He never grieved for that. But let me also be crystal clear about this. It doesn't make me happy either. I neither mourn nor celebrate. Neither of those reactions is appropriate, in my opinion. Whoever pulled that trigger didn't do it for me, and they didn't do it for you. I don't even see them as being on two different sides. They didn't silence Charlie Kirk. They amplified Charlie Kirk. The power structure never cared about that boy. They used him. And he's more useful to them now than he was the day before. He's more useful to them dead than he was alive. Listen, you don't defeat someone like this, someone like a Charlie Kirk, a tool like him, by letting that tool mold you into exactly what they want you to be. That killer didn't deliver justice. If you think they did, he didn't. He delivered to the power structure an even more enhanced weapon. He made a mediocre, but dangerous and polarizing figure, Charlie Kirk, into now an impeachable icon for the very fan base that he most likely despises. And he made criticism of Charlie Kirk's ideas. Now it's disrespect for the dead. This is not resistance. This is a gift. This is a gift to the very security state that he probably thought he was attacking. No, it's stupidity. They're spinning the narrative now. They're going to label him as a martyr for free speech, a victim of left-wing extremism. And they're going to use his death. They're going to use it to demand more surveillance, more censorship, more policing, more militarization of the police against their opponents, more police powers. They're going to use his blood to sanitize his ideology and to legitimize every poisonous thing that he ever said. And some of you are out here cheering about what happened. Well, you're fools. Why, when you celebrate, all you do is elevate and strengthen their narrative. Charlie Kirk was not an outlier. He was a product. He was the logical output of a system that's designed to generate exactly what he was. Like I said, he didn't create the demand. The demand was already there. He just exploited it. He sold a fantasy, like I say, a fantasy where all of the problems of modern America, economic decay, economic despair, cultural displacement, and cultural unrest, political powerlessness, these are all not the inevitable results of late-stage capitalism in a dying empire, no. It's all the fault of immigrants. It's all the fault of minorities, of wokeism. Some internal enemy that's not in power. Well, now he's been killed. And his death is going to be used to service that same system.
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, Africans. I hope you're faring well where you are. And if you ain't faring well, please fare well where you are. They say a sharp tongue can draw a deeper wound than any blade, but the echoes of its words can find no sanctuary from the storm they raise. You see, this proverb speaks to the potential consequences of inflammatory speech and the way a person's words can create a backlash that affects them in unexpected and tragic ways. Why am I giving you this proverb? I'm giving you this proverb in relation to what happened on September 10th, 2025, right? On September 10th is when we had Charles Kirk assassinated, right? Charles Kirk is a very polarizing figure. Some people were in support of his words, his sentiments, his ideologies, while some other people were really outraged by the words which were coming outside his mouth. Charles Kirk himself was a Republican and a conservative. The moment we hear someone is a Republican and to add again being a conservative, which in many times conservatives are always going along with the Republicans. So we know the ideology behind and we know the philosophy of the conservative mind and the Republican mind, which is making America great again. Anything that tries to diminish the image of America, even trying to point out what's wrong, makes you be an enemy of the Republican and makes you be an enemy of the conservatives, right? Because they're trying to point and they're trying to make that image look good of America. And such a figure, again, was Charles Kirk. He gave a lot of his thoughts, right? Some of them, I personally agreed with them, and some of them, I find them outrageous. Some knowledge you only acquire after you have experienced it. Right? An example of what he said is that there is no racism, right? He's white. Of course, he can't experience racism because he's white and he's living in America. So because you do not experience something does not make it not exist, right? That is my perspective, and we have a lot of white people who are also going to share their perspectives. I want us to dive into this video, listen to them. I shall get back by the end of the video, of course, where we shall also have a deep, critical analysis. Let's dive in.
All these white people on TikTok crying over a snake, like Charlie Kirk dying. Why? When you put out hate in the world, it comes back at you. Why are you crying? Do you know that 15% of the population of the world is white? The other 85% of the rest of the goddamn world is not white. However, you white people over the centuries have murdered millions of people. Why are you upset about this devil's spawn? Why? You all killed each other all over Europe. Right now, 2 white nations are fighting against each other. And the white nation of Israel, supposedly, is looking to eliminate 2 million people in Gaza. For 15% of the world population, you certainly and without a doubt have caused nothing but strife in almost every goddamn country in the world except Japan, because you didn't invade it. So shut the fuck up. We don't care. Utah is 89% white. Why hasn't Trump sent the National Guard for this white on white crimes? And as for Utah, that's another cult state. This man made up a religion so that he could essay young girls. So fuck off.
I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year, so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational.
All right, let me try and explain something to you. The world is trying to change and ascend into a intuition and loved base way of being. When that happens and we start talking things out loud, that's how manifestation occurs. So when you are speaking about subjects like this, it's not one rule for everybody else, but you're exempt. If you have a true belief like this and you're willing to state it, unfortunately for him, for his wife and his children, there are consequences. We can call it karmic retribution, and that is going to happen to every single person, whether that is in this lifetime or your next. It is the way the universe works, through balance. We must experience everything. We experience what we put onto others, and we experience what others put onto us. In a world that is evolving and ever-changing, choose your words carefully. Choose your beliefs. Question where such hateful, dominant energy is coming from. Where is it going to get you? Where is that leading you and the rest of the world? Be careful of your words, as our world is ascending into instant manifestation times.
Charlie Kirk's death has just been confirmed, and I want to say one thing. You cannot claim to be against gun violence and then cheer when someone dies by it. I don't care if you were a fan of him. I don't care if you hate his guts. You cannot claim to be against gun violence and then cheer when it happens to someone.
How do you feel about Charlie Kirk's death? Look, Charlie Kirk was not the best guy. He had terrible views. He justified genocide. We don't agree with the guy. However, you don't defeat ideas through bullets. You defeat ideas through ideas. Political violence is never justified anywhere, especially in America. But it is justified everywhere outside of America when America supports it, like the bombing recently in Doha, Qatar.
Personally, I will never celebrate somebody being murdered, but that doesn't mean that I have to have sympathy either. Charlie Kirk is going to have a legacy, but it's going to be a bad legacy to a lot of us. And he will be remembered by all of the hateful and racist rhetoric that he spread while he was alive. And it's crazy that Laura Loomer really got on X to say that she's going to ruin the livelihoods of anyone that is celebrating or happy that Charlie Kirk died. But yet there was the same fucking woman that got on X a few months ago saying things like, feeding illegals to the gators. We need more of that energy. The alligators have 65 million meals guaranteed if we start now. So you can promote and encourage the death of 65 million fucking Latinos, but Charlie Kirk is where we draw the line. You guys are fucking delusional. It's crazy to say that Dems are the fucking problem when the majority of mass shootings in this country have been far-right, white Christian nationalists. Yes. But one person shoots Charlie Kirk and all of a sudden we have a Dem problem? Like, really, what is the experience to be this fucking delusional?
If you are loudly grieving Charlie Kirk today, but you were radio silent when Melissa Hortman and her husband were violently attacked and killed in their home, and John Hoffman were shot because they were politicians. If you do not post on Facebook about all of these mass shootings that are killing our children, and you are not posting or talking about the thousands of children and women and men who are losing their lives in Gaza for a genocide that we pay for with our tax dollars. If you are openly grieving him today, but you have been radio silent about those things, I do not want to hear a word from you. Your empathy is performative at best. Every human being matters. So until you start acting like it, I would stop opening your mouth and talking.
It was a kill shot. 110% it was a kill shot. Nobody can walk away from this, okay? I have seen my fair share of bullet wounds on people, and let me tell you what I saw. I can't show you, but I'll tell you. Charlie Kirk was sitting there, with the white shirt on, under his tent, answering some questions, has the microphone up right here, says something about gang violence, puts the microphone down, then all of a sudden you see something disappear on his neck, about that big, right there on his neck, and it was red. And all of a sudden you hear the crack of the shot. In case you don't know, you're going to see the wound before you hear the shot. That's how I was able to really decipher if this seems legit, and it does. But you hear the crack of the shot, you see him tense up his hands like that, go a little limp, which is very common when somebody gets shot, and then it looks like somebody just turned on a water faucet. It was bad. Very bad. And no matter what round or size that projectile was, that bullet, it could even be a 22, okay? I doubt it. It sounded more like a 30-30 to me, typical hunting rifle with a pretty big round, but no matter what, the size of that round going into the side of your neck like this at that angle, it's going to affect your spinal cord. And I'm going to say a prayer after this video, and I highly recommend you do too, for Charlie, because he has a wife and kids. I don't agree with him. I don't like his political outlook, but I'm not going to hope he dies. Okay, that's what makes us human. But what happened is terrible, and I hope he survives it. So maybe he can actually switch up his narrative and speak for the betterment of society and make sure shit like this doesn't happen again.
Black people get reparations.
I believe they should.
So I, white man, have to play for black people. Why?
Wow, that's a really selfish thing you just said.
Hold on. Why should I have...
That's a really non-empathetic thing to say.
Wait, why should I have empathy for a race? I have white guilt because I breathe? Why should the white students here have to work harder to pay for black kids? What is that all about?
Not every black person has lineage connected to slaves.
That's
and
true.
Every white person doesn't have lineage connected to slaves.
Yes, that's right. So since every black person doesn't have a lineage connected to slaves, why should we generalize and say reparations for black people?
Because there are people that are in a worse place.
So over 150 years, they didn't have any ability to make better decisions, to save money, and to invest. How about you take responsibility for your own actions instead of blaming the white man? They're in every TV commercial. They get more privileges to come into society. They come into every college on preferential with lower test scores. You can't ever say anything negative. You can lose your job. You have your entire life obliterated if you say something racist. And about how racist we are, how about you take responsibility for your own actions instead of blaming the white man? That's not racist, that's noticing. How is it the white man's fault that black men started to abandoning the women?
It's a bigger problem.
No, blacks need to take responsibility for the women that they impregnate, not blame the white man or racism.
Things affect this.
Why didn't it affect the Asians? Why did the Asians do so well? America got less racist and the blacks got poorer because we started to subsidize single motherhood and pandering to blacks, saying you do not need to stay.
Charlie Kirk has died because of gun violence, and only seconds before he got shot and killed, he was talking about shootings. In fact, he was condemning trans people literally seconds before getting shot. He has been quoted for repeatedly saying that he is okay with people getting shot as long as we retain the Second Amendment. But he made it crystal clear right before he died that too many trans people have been responsible for shootings, even though it is less than 0.1% of all shootings. So even at his very end, he is focused on the wrong issue. And it is, of course, tragic for his family. And the way that he died is insurmountably painful. But how ironic that this man stood for the very thing that ended his life.
Thousands of people have gone online celebrating the passing of Charlie Kirk, and many of them are now losing their jobs. Many of the people you've seen cheering on the passing of Charlie Kirk started with this man who just moments after Charlie Kirk was struck, right in front of him, was cheering on video that Charlie Kirk was hit. Then you have this woman who was a nurse going on TikTok celebrating the passing of Charlie Kirk, and now people have found out where she works and are talking to her employers. This man who wrote this entire statement here is actually in the military, and people have already alerted Pete Hegseth, who is essentially this man's boss, and will probably be trying to do something about it. You have another woman who is a 2nd and 3rd grade teacher's aide who was posting about that she wished she would have heard of another obituary talking about Donald Trump, but instead she would settle for Charlie Kirk. And this man, probably the most prominent person to be fired after their comments on Charlie Kirk, was Matthew Dowd, who was actually working at MSNBC and went on air saying some absolutely terrible things. But more and more of these videos are coming out, and more of these people are going to be losing their jobs.
You're white, you're privileged, you're Christian. How can you argue these things when you don't understand what an oppressed individual is going through?
White privilege is a myth and a lie and should be completely destroyed. It's rooted in racism. It is a racist idea. It is a racist idea. Why don't they ever talk about Asian American privilege? Asian Americans were widely discriminated against in the 1940s and 50s. We treated them horribly and put them in internment camps. Then through a series of decades of making good choices, they've now become the richest per capita subracial group in America. I never hear about Asian American privilege. I never hear about people getting so upset that all the Asian Americans are getting the PhDs or the degrees or all the good jobs in California, yet they're trying to target white people. Here comes the basis of it. If they're trying to balkanize this country and break us into different subracial groups, that is the definition of racism. They say, oh, you don't understand me because you're a white, privileged Christian. Well, isn't that exactly what the definition of racism is?
I want to start this video off by saying a couple of things. What a tragedy it was for us as human beings and as a nation, because Charlie Kirk was assassinated, period. This just needs to stop, period, ended. One of the bigger questions right now is, who did it? There may be a gigantic rabbit hole in trying to figure this all out as we dive into it. Let's start off with the first person that they arrested on the scene, who claims that he is the one who pulled the trigger and assassinated Charlie Kirk. This individual right here, he was taken down to the police station, questioned, and then released when they figured out that he was not the primary suspect. Then they later picked up a second suspect, brought him down for questioning, and also found out that he was not the person that they were looking for, and they released him. Just a short while ago this afternoon, the FBI released these images of this individual wanted for questioning in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Take a good look at that image. Do you know who that individual is? If you do, the FBI would like to hear from you. There is the tip line right on the bottom of the screen. Take a look at it. But speculation continues as to who that is on the roof. Nobody knows. Some say it could have been a college student that did it. It might have not been. We don't know that at this time. But the one thing we can all agree on is that that was a professional that did that. Why do I say that? Because it was just one shot. And that individual knew that that's all it would take to do what they wanted to do. It's another reason why, in my mind, it can't be the work of a college student. But if it is, think about that. Who trained that individual? Those questions will definitely need to be answered. Authorities also, during a press conference, spoke about recovering the weapon used to assassinate Charlie Kirk. Take a look at this.
We have recovered what we believe is the weapon that was used in yesterday's shooting. It is a high-powered bolt-action rifle. That rifle was recovered in a wooded area where the shooter had fled. So the FBI laboratory will be analyzing this weapon. Investigators have also collected footwear impression, a palm print, and forearm imprints for analysis.
So as you just heard in that clip, they have footprints, arm prints, they've recovered the weapon used to assassinate Charlie Kirk. Do you think this individual is going to be caught? They have so many camera angles from all over that area where this tragedy occurred. Do you think that someone got something else on camera? And the other thing is, why would that person, the first person, come up and say that he did it? Why would he say that? What would be the reason for that? Think about that. That's why I'm saying this rabbit hole is going to run really, really deep. And then the new images that just came out of the person of interest they're looking for. Once again, if you know anything, contact the FBI and let them know. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. And as always, I'd love to hear from you.
Of course we pander to blacks. They're in every TV commercial. They get more privileges to come into society. They come into every college on preferential with lower test scores. You can't ever say anything negative. You can lose your job. You have your entire life obliterated if you say something racist. And yet we have to hear about how racist we are. How about you take responsibility for your own actions instead of blaming the white man?
A lot of people are mad at Dean Withers' response to the passing of Charlie Kirk, especially the point that Dean makes at the end.
His wife and children were in attendance, dude. Imagine, you know, imagine being a 12-year-old, you know, watching your dad fucking die. Nobody deserves that. Not even Charlie Kirk.
And even more worse, people are also mad at Parker after Parker was literally there at Utah Valley University and was so taken back by what he witnessed firsthand at the Charlie Kirk event that Parker was so horrified that he felt bad for Charlie. Now, a lot of fans of Dean and Parker are mad at them because they are not celebrating this. Even Dean and Parker, who are Charlie Kirk's biggest op, and even realize that people that are celebrating this are fucking weird. Every new video that I see of what happened to Charlie Kirk actually makes me sick to my stomach. And while a lot of people had very tone-deaf responses, even including Kai Cenat, did Dean also gain your respect?
Of all the things I predicted this year, which isn't much because I'm not fucking Nostradamus, Charlie Kirk being assassinated definitely wasn't on that list. I'm going to be honest, I was deeply shocked by this information, fundamentally shook to my core and not in a positive way, because I can be very anti someone or believe they're evil or be fundamentally ethically against everything they stand for, but I cannot support something that comes from something else I'm fundamentally against. Cannot be for gun reform and gun control while simultaneously supporting the consequence of that not happening, even in these circumstances. And I know what he said just before it happened as well. And I also blame the systemic failures that led Charlie Kirk to have the ideology that he had more than Charlie Kirk himself. I can't be troubled about a lack of empathy in this day and age for the very real things I speak about and then not have any empathy towards this situation. I also know what Charlie Kirk's stance was on empathy and it being woke too. However, of course, there is going to be a lot of social commentary and discourse about this event. I'm finding it interesting. We're already seeing a pattern of people trying to police other people's reactions to it, and I'm not trying to police them policing either. I'm just saying I understand that there will be a lot of people who will also have it, not just a lack of empathy, but will celebrate his death. Because he wasn't just polarizing, he believed that certain people just didn't deserve to exist. He believed 10-year-old rape victims should be forced to birth their rapist baby. He believed immigrants didn't deserve due process before being ripped away from their family members and deported. He believed trans people didn't deserve to exist as their authentic self, and he didn't believe in equal rights for any of the LGBTQI community. We all know what he said about gun violence and casualties of that just being the way it is. And if someone was vocal in advocating for you not to have basic human rights or for you to not even exist, and then they were assassinated, I can understand why it would be hard to develop empathy or sympathy for that person. People are going to have very valid reactions to this, especially if they do come from one of the minorities that were impacted the most out of Charlie Kirk's ideals. And I think we just need to accept that. And maybe we should be more angry at the system that allowed this to happen in the first place.
Don't be fooled. This guy didn't shoot Charlie Kirk. I'm going to have this screenshot up just so you guys can actually go and watch this video and understand what's going on in our country today. But don't be fooled. Charlie Kirk, that was a professional hit. Let's break it down. Let's really think about this. On an average person who maybe has a gun, who's maybe went shooting a couple times, you know, if this was just an average Joe that killed Charlie Kirk, do you think they're just letting off one shot? And do you think they get so lucky that they hit right here where the jugular is? Pretty much a kill shot. Let's really think about it. An average Joe, if you were to go and shoot someone in front of a crowd, a high-profile person, your adrenaline is running through the roof, you're letting off multiple shots because not an average person is just going to go and start shooting someone that's a high-value profile person out the blue. You know, this has to be a professional hit. One shot, one hit. Whereas the shooter, no one knows. But we all know how the story goes. They'll say, this guy did it, case closed, and that's that. But don't be fooled.
I was just standing there about maybe 15 feet in front of Charlie, probably it was in the standing area, the standing crowd, maybe 3 people back behind the guardrail, and we were just enjoying listening to him answering questions. And before I continue, I don't think this is being covered. I don't know if any witnesses have come out and said that one of the last things that Charlie declared before the shot rang out was that Christ is Lord and that he defeated death. And I just find that very poetic, despite this tragedy. After that declaration, he moved on to the next question, which during that time was when the shot rang out, and it just seemed like everything went in slow motion. It didn't seem real for that split second, and then and I saw very up close the graphic detail of what happened, and at that point, me and the friend that I was with and the crowd around us ducked down and quickly got on the ground. I just remember instinctively shouting, "No, no, no, no." I reached for my phone to text my wife and to tell her that there was a shooter and that I loved her in case anything happened to me. And at that point, we were on the ground for about a minute, and not hearing any more shots ring out gave everyone the confidence to just start running to the buildings. I'm going to be completely honest. When I walked into this courtyard, the first thing that I thought, with everything that's happened in the past decade or few years, the first thing I thought was, I hope they have good security here, because this does not seem like a safe place for Charlie to be giving his message. In terms of the layout of the courtyard, not in terms of the people, which you know, like she was saying earlier, it was a mostly friendly crowd, and so just the layout of the courtyard. That was my initial thought. Is that this does not seem very safe.
Now, after clearly watching this video, here is my deep critical analysis. Charles Kirk is a controversial figure. We can't deny that. He's a very, very polarizing figure, right? You see, even when Jesus was walking the earth, he was also polarizing, right? Just because someone is controversial, just because someone is polarizing, does not make them evil. You shall know them by their fruits, right? You shall know them by their fruits. There's no way a banana will give rise to oranges. There is no way, right? So Kirk is a controversial figure, and in these times that he has passed on, you see, there are words he spoke, right? There are words he spoke. And the internet never forgets. The internet will always remind you what you said, even long after you go. So how you live, you should know that life is very fragile. This life is very fragile. And you can go anytime. This man did not expect to die on that day. He had plans with his girl, with his family. He had plans with his daughters, but they never came to actualize, right? On that fateful 10th September, Mr. Charles Kirk was taken away from the face of the earth, right? So I'm going to read to you what he said. So here is the event, which was called Turning Point USA. This happened in 2023. Charles Kirk said he thinks guns are worth it to have a second amendment. So he believed people ought to have guns, right? You see, it is said that those who live by the sword shall die by the sword, right? You believe in the sword, you die by the sword. You believe in peace, you die in peace. You believe in violence, you die in violence. So people must be honest here. With the American population, having an armed citizenry comes with a price, and that is part of liberty. We need to be very clear that you are not going to get gun deaths to zero. It will not happen. That is Charles Kirk saying all this. He continues, but I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost off. Unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment, he adds, right? So basically, he believes people should have guns, right? But you've listened to his reason. A big population, he thinks you having a gun is going to be a form of protection, a form of self-defense. Let's think of it that way. Because in Africa, we may not be having guns, but we may be having machetes. What is your intention with the machete, right? Your intention with the machete is to protect yourself, not to cut trees, but to protect yourselves, right? So if we were given the opportunity to own guns, we would. So I really don't think that we should roast the guy on this, right? We shouldn't roast him on this. The second thing he said is, there is a certain podcast which he calls The Kirk Show, right? He expressed his dislike of the word empathy. He did not like the word empathy. We know what empathy means. This is what he said. I can't stand the word empathy. Actually, he said, I think empathy is a made-up new age term that does a lot of damage. That is what he said. The third thing he said, this was happening in Jubilee's internet show, which is called Surrounded. Charles Kirk insisted black people were better in the 1940s under Jim Crow laws. This was done while debating a college student. Kirk said, black people were actually better, or rather they were better in 1940s. It was bad, it was evil, but what happened? something happened. They committed less crimes in the 1940s. Then the person debated responded, 4,000 black men, women, and children were killed in violent lynch mobs. Racial terror permeated American culture for hundreds of years. You don't think that affected the general psyche of an entire group of people? So the other person who is being asked, who is debating Kirk, responds, right? Charles goes ahead to say, Black America is worse than it has been in the last 80 years. So basically, according to Charles Kirk, black people are the ones who are making America worse. That's not a peaceful sentiment. That's not a peaceful statement. That's not a peaceful word from a man of his caliber to speak such words. The fourth is this. During that same Jubilee show, right, Kirk was asked what he would want his daughter to do if she were 10 years old and pregnant following a grape. This was happening after Charles Kirk called the scenario graphic. He responds, the answer is yes, the baby would be delivered, right? So he didn't believe in abortion. I also do not believe in abortion. I don't believe in killing human beings because those people have fingerprints. They have souls. They have God's spirit. You kill, you do abortion, you kill. Yes. You do abortion, you kill. I stand with Charles Kirk on this. Right? Another thing he said, this one he spoke on the people of LGBTQ plus A, B, C, D, whatever. You see, at a Turning Point USA event, Charles Kirk suggested trans people are wearing the gender equivalent of blackface. Charles Kirk added, a man who calls himself trans is wearing a woman's face. Not different than I would wear blackface trying to be a black person. It's assuming an identity that isn't yours, right? So why would he put blackness into LGBTQ? Black people are not LGBTQ, no. We can't say that I don't support those people. So am I trans? And let's say someone else is trans. Do all trans people black? Or what was his logic to compare black and trans? I don't get it. Maybe you explain to me in the comment section. Right? The sixth thing he said, this was happening on his radio show. Kirk not only said that Joe Reid, Michelle Obama, Sheila Jackson Lee, and Ketanji Brown Jackson are affirmative action picks. Right? These are black people. He's calling them action picks. The seventh thing our brother said is that black women do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously. So basically he's saying that women who are black do not have serious mental capacity, right? That they have to steal to make themselves relevant. That's absurd. That's meaningless. It's nonsense. It doesn't make sense to me. The eighth thing. After Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce announced their engagement, Charles Kirk fantasized about Kelsey making Swift more conservative and begged the pop star to submit to her husband. That one I believe in. All women should submit to their husbands. That one, I agree with the guy. This is something that I hope will make Taylor Swift more conservative. He said, engage in reality more. Reject feminism. Submit to your husband. Taylor, you are not in charge. And Charles Kirk is borrowing this from the Bible. These are not his words only. He's borrowing this from the Bible. And that's why I'm also in support of it. Again, the ninth one, on X, Charles Kirk insisted gun control, like vaccine and masks, is forced on making people feel safe by taking freedom away from others, don't fall for it, right? The 10th thing, following the tragic January collision between an American Airlines and a Black Hawk helicopter, Donald Trump suggested diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts that were at fault. Kirk added to this saying, "If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified." You see, these are not really good words. He is always comparing black people to vices. To vices. Black equal to vice, according to Charles Kirk. Again, the 11th one, following the release of an NBC poll illustrating the differences in priorities between Gen Zs, which showed that Gen Z women who voted for Kamala Harris see having a fulfilling career as a maker of success. Charles Kirk said, Democrat women want to die alone without children, right? I think he's saying this with regards to Kamala Harris's support for LGBTQ+. You know, LGBTQ+ is an attack to the family. Anybody who wants to attack your family should perish. Anyone who wants to attack your family should perish straight away. Anyone telling your wife to go away should perish. They should be hit by thunderstorm. They should be crushed by a car. Yes, you can share these wherever you want, with anyone you want. So he's saying this with regards to Kamala Harris's support of LGBTQ+. Because you can't give birth if you are trans. You can't give birth if you are gay. Gays don't give birth. It's unnatural. The 12th one is, Kirk repeatedly spread misinformation surrounding the death of George Floyd, who experts said died from an officer applying their knee to his neck. Instead, Kirk, who is not a medical examiner and did not examine Floyd's body, said his death was caused by overdose. Goodness, goodness, goodness. Charles Kirk wanted to raise the page of retirement and didn't think people should retire at all. Now I will say that for future retirees, this is the 13th thing he said. For future retirees, people under the age of 45, we should absolutely raise the retirement age. I am going to say something very provocative. I'm not a fan of retirement. I don't think retirement is biblical. He said, you say, Charlie, I'm just going to retire and I'm just going to go golf. I think what a waste of the gift that God has given you, right? The 14th one is this. During the Pride Month, children's show host, children's show host, Ms. Rachel, aka Rachel Griffin Akuso, wished followers a happy Pride and responded to subsequent backlash by quoting the Bible and expressing the importance of loving every neighbor. In response, Charles Kirk attempted to cite the Bible to prove a point about his anti-gay views, but he ultimately misquoted a mixture of passages from Leviticus chapter 18 verse 22 and Leviticus chapter 20 verse 13. He said, you shall lay with another man shall be stoned. Okay, who shall lay with another man shall be stoned to death. Just saying, the chapter affirms God's perfect law when it comes to sexual matter. I'm going to tell you, Charles spoke a lot of things, not only these ones. He spoke so many. These are the ones I collected. At some extent, I agree with Charles Kirk because he's borrowing from the Bible. He's a conservative, right? He's a conservative. He's someone with whom I would share many of his, because I see, apart from being black, he's following the Bible. Apart from going against black, he's following the Bible. The Bible is not racist. The Bible does not condone racism. It doesn't. In fact, it punishes racism so hard and so severely. Because when we see the book of Genesis. I think it happens in Genesis. You see, Moses married a Cushite woman. Cushites are Africans. And the sister to Moses and his brother, Miriam and Aaron, did not like this black woman. They started gossiping behind Moses. And you see, God was not pleased by this because he was listening. God listens to your heart even before you do what you think you want to do. He listened to the heart of Moses' sister and Moses' brother, and he was not pleased. He came to them and he said, with you, have you not seen that the old prophets, those other prophets, what I do is I talk to them through visions, I talk to them through dreams, but with Moses, I speak to him face to face. Who are you to think that you can speak to my servant, that I speak to him face to face like that? You see, God was not pleased. God felt disrespected because they disrespected the choices of Moses. The marital status and the marital choices of Moses, they disrespected. And so the sister to Moses, Miriam, was cursed with leprosy, and she suffered severely. Yes. I don't support suffering, but I believe things must be made right. Yeah. Share your thoughts on the comment section. I'm eager to hear what you have to say. Yeah. See you in the next one. Stay positive.